This is Chapter 1, Cautions and Comparison. How to burn $1 million and
We rethink the traditional idea of success and the deferred life plan. True wealth isn't merely $1 million in the bank, but rather the freedom, time, and mobility that money represents, governed by the freedom multiplier.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to ZAM Audiobook.
Thank you, Ali. I'm excited for today's discussion.
So today we are diving into a massive stack of research, case studies, and some really fascinating lifestyle design framework. And they make a pretty terrifying claim right up front.
Yeah, they really do.
Right. Like the claim is that the traditional idea of saving $1 million for retirement is essentially a scam, like a setup that will basically cost you the absolute best year of your life.
Which is a hard pill to swallow for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I mean, our mission today is to really unpack this data to figure out how you can completely decouple your time from your income.
Exactly. We want to look at how to build a life on your own terms, whether you're, a standard employee, maybe a freelancer, or an entrepreneur.
Because the data we have reveals a completely different way of operating.
Yeah.
I mean, most of us are handed this very specific cultural script from a young age, right?
Oh, definitely. Go to school, get a job, work hard.
Exactly. The frameworks actually call this the deferred life plan. And the logic is, it's pretty standard. You secure a stable job, you work relentlessly for like 40 years, and you just save a fraction of your income.
Right. You defer all the good stuff.
Yeah, you defer your passions, your travel, your freedom, all for this really distant finish line called retirement. But the research points out a massive flaw in that thinking.
Which is that you might not even be able to enjoy it.
Precisely. It assumes you will automatically have the physical health, the vibrant energy, and honestly the desire to do all those exciting things once you finally hit your late 60s.
It's such a huge gamble. I mean, I look at family members who worked that 40-year grind, and by the time they retired, they were either just too exhausted or facing health issues. They couldn't travel the world the way they had always dreamed about.
It happens.
So we're treating retirement as the ultimate goal, but these frameworks suggest we should be looking at this subculture often called the new rich. And, just to be clear for everyone listening, the data isn't defining rich by, who has the most yachts or massive trust.
No, not at all. The new rich is really a mindset. It's an operational strategy. It represents people who completely abandon that deferred life plan we just talked about.
Right. They aren't waiting around.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Instead of stockpiling cash for some uncertain future, they use two primary currencies to design a luxury lifestyle in the present. And those currencies are time and mobility.
Time and mobility.
Yeah. They understand that a luxury lifestyle is actually governed by a mathematical concept called the freedom multiplier.
And this is where the math of wealth shifts, right? Because the traditional view is that money's value is totally static. A dollar is a dollar.
Right. That's what we're taught.
But the freedom multiplier shows that money's practical value actually multiplies based on 4 distinct W. What you do, when you do, where you do, and with whom you do.
And having control over those variables radically changes how much money you actually need to be happy.
Yeah, and if we look at the illusion of the $1 million, it becomes super clear. Like if you poll people on the street and ask what they want, the default answer is always, I want $1 million.
Of course. Everyone says that.
But if you dig into the psychology there, they don't actually want a vault full of paper currency, right? They want the lifestyle they assume that money buys.
Exactly. They want the ability to wake up without an alarm clock, or, to spend an entire Tuesday afternoon with their kids, or to just pack up and travel to Japan for a month.
Or fire a totally toxic client.
Oh, definitely that.
Yeah.
But the secret is you don't actually need $1 million in the bank to do any of those.
Right. If you have, say, a remote income stream of $60,000, but you control those 4 W's, you can live a vastly wealthier lifestyle than someone making $200,000 chained to a desk.
But that leads right into a natural point of friction, though, because the immediate reaction most people have when looking at this concept is just pure fear.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It sounds terrifying to step off the normal path.
It really does. Transitioning from a stable, predictable corporate path to a life focused on time and mobility feels dangerous. People wonder, well, what happens if the economy crashes? Or what if my unconventional business just fails?
It sounds like jumping without a safety. I mean, if I stop aiming for that massive retirement stockpile and start prioritizing my Tuesday afternoons, am I just being irresponsible? Like, how does the data actually reconcile that risk?
It reconciles it through the concept of leverage. The frameworks we're analyzing show that true security doesn't come from trading your hours for dollars, because your hours are strictly capped. You only have so many in a day.
Right. You literally run out of time.
Exactly. True security comes from building systems that earn while you sleep. When you have a cash flow engine that is completely disconnected from your physical labor, your risk profile actually goes down. You aren't aiming to be lazy, you're aiming to be structurally resilient.
But still, the psychological barrier there is massive. And to tackle that, our notes outline this brilliant exercise called fear setting.
I love fear setting.
It's so good. Like, we're all familiar with goal setting, right? But fear setting is about meticulously defining your nightmare. If you are considering, say, asking your boss to work remotely or starting a side business, you actually sit down and write out the absolute worst-case scenario in agonizing detail.
And you don't just write it down, you actually categorize it. You ask yourself, okay, if this worst-case scenario happened, what specific steps would I take to repair the damage? How long would it take to recover?
And usually people realize their nightmare is pretty manageable.
Yeah. Their absolute worst nightmare is maybe losing a few $1,000s or, having to update their resume and find another traditional job. It's a temporary, entirely reversible setback. It's rarely a permanent tragedy.
And furthermore, fear setting asks you to calculate the cost of inaction. Like, if you let fear stop you, what will your life look like in 1 year or 5 years?
Usually, the emotional and physical cost of staying in a miserable situation vastly outweighs the temporary risk of just trying something. Chapter 2. Rules that change the rules. Everything popular is wrong.
We challenge standard work-life assumptions that keep people trapped in the rat race. We contrast absolute income with relative income and explore why stress isn't always a bad thing if it's the right kind.
So if we are tossing out the old rule book that says, work until you drop,
Yeah.
we need to establish the new rules of engagement. And the first new rule completely reframes how we view our careers.
It really does. The data suggests that retirement, as it's traditionally defined, is actually just worst-case scenario insurance.
Which is such profound shift in perspective. If your entire life strategy is built around enduring misery today for the promise of relief 30 years from now, you're basically playing a losing game.
Right. If you hate your work so much that you're constantly fantasizing about the day you can finally stop doing it, the underlying system is just broken.
Exactly. The goal shouldn't be to escape your life. The goal is to build a life from which you don't need to escape.
And to build that life, we have to look at the biology of how human beings actually operate, because the traditional 40-hour work week was designed for industrial factories.
The whole 9 to thing.
Yeah. It assumes human energy is like a light switch. You turn it on at 9 a.m., it produces a flat, instant line of productivity, and you turn it off at 5 p.m. But human energy is not linear at all.
Highly cyclical.
Exactly. The frameworks we're studying point out that the most sustainable, high-performance approach to work actually mirrors athletic training. Think of the difference between a marathon runner and a sprinter.
Okay, yeah, pacing versus all-out effort.
Right. The corporate world treats work like a marathon, grinding out endless hours at a moderate level of exhaustion. But optimal productivity comes from sprinting. You alternate periods of intense, hyper-focused activity with periods of total detachment and deep rest.
So you work fiercely for a short burst, and then you completely recover.
Yes.
Which brings us to the math that supports this entire lifestyle shift.
Yeah.
This is where the concept of absolute income versus relative income really comes into play. And it's completely counterintuitive at first.
It is.
Like absolute income is just the raw dollar amount. It's the number you brag about at a dinner party. Right?
Yeah. But absolute income only measures the currency. Relative income measures the currency divided by the time it took to earn it.
Let's give an example of that.
Sure. To see why this matters, we can look at a very specific scenario from the case studies. Let's imagine a corporate lawyer making $500,000.
Okay.
In absolute terms, they are incredibly well. But that lawyer is working 80 hours a week for 50. That totals 4,000 hours.
Wow, that's a lot of hours.
It is. And if you divide their income by their hours, their relative income is $125.
Okay, so let's contrast that with someone who has applied these lifestyle design frameworks. Imagine, say, a freelance digital marketer who has automated their client onboarding and uses software to run campaigns.
Right.
They only make $40,000 a year in absolute income, but because of their systems, they only work 10 hours a week, 50 weeks a year.
Which is just 500 hours of total work.
Exactly. If you do the math on that, their relative income is $80 an hour.
Now, the instinct is to say the lawyer is still richer because $125 is more than $80.
Right. The raw number is bigger.
But this is where you must factor in the freedom multiplier we discussed. The lawyer has zero control over their time, or they're trapped in a high-cost city paying exorbitant taxes, commuting, and they have literally no free time to actually spend their wealth.
While the freelancer controls all the variables.
Exactly. They can take that $40,000 and move to a gorgeous beach town in Southeast Asia or South America, places where the cost of living is a fraction of what it is.
So their purchasing power basically triples.
Yeah. And they have 70 extra hours a week to learn a language, start a second business, or just raise a family. In terms of actual lived wealth, the freelancer working 10 hours a week is vastly wealthy.
That math fundamentally breaks the illusion of the corporate ladder, honestly. But it also requires us to change our relationship with stress. We have this societal notion that the goal of success is to just eliminate all stress and sit on a beach drinking cocktails forever.
Which sounds nice for about a week.
Right. But the data shows that actually leads to severe depression and boredom. We have to differentiate between distress and eustress.
That's a really important distinction.
Think of it like this. Distress is like having a toxic manager screaming at you for making a typo. It breaks you down, it spikes your cortisol, and it ruins your health. Eustress, however, is like a personal trainer adding 10 pounds to your barbell.
Right, it's difficult, it makes you sweat, but it forces your muscles to grow stronger.
Right.
Distress consists of harmful stimuli that make you weaker, less confident, and eustress consists of the challenges, the calculated risks, and the demanding projects that push you.
So the goal of lifestyle design isn't to live in a vacuum of zero stress.
No, the goal is to aggressively identify and cut out the distress, the pointless meetings, the negative clients, the micromanagement, and intentionally seek out like mastering a complex new software or launching a new product. Or Chapter 5, The End of Time Management, Illusions and Italian.
We dispel the myth that being busy is the same as being productive. By applying Pareto's law and Parkinson's law, you can eliminate inefficiencies and focus exclusively on high-impact tasks.
So let's look at the actual mechanics of freeing up all this. We hear the phrase time management, but the frameworks in our notes suggest that traditional time management is actually a trap.
It is. We have built an entire corporate culture around the obsession with being busy. If your calendar is packed with back-to-back meetings and you're sending emails at midnight, you feel important. You feel like a martyr for the company.
The research presents a very uncomfortable truth for a lot of professionals here, which is that being busy is frequently just a form of laziness.
Yes, it's lazy thinking and indiscriminate action. We often use busyness as a shield to protect ourselves from the critically important but highly uncomfortable action we actually need to take.
I am absolutely that.
We all are. It's much easier and less intimidating to spend 4 hours meticulously organizing your digital file folders than it is to pick up the phone and make the one terrifying sales pitch that could actually double your revenue.
It really comes down to the fundamental confusion between efficiency and effectiveness. Like, efficiency is about doing a task right in the most economical way possible. You can be incredibly efficient at clearing out your spam folder. But effectiveness is about doing the right task. If you do something that is fundamentally unimportant, doing it exceptionally well does not magically important.
To transition from simply being efficient to being ruthlessly effective, the data points us toward two mathematical and psychological. The first is Pareto's law, named after Vilfredo Pareto, an Italian economist.
The 80-20 rule.
Exactly. He observed a recurring ratio in economics. He noticed that 80% of the wealth in Italy was owned by 20% of the population. But this ratio applies to almost everything. Roughly 80% of the outputs or results in any system come from just 20% of the inputs or effort.
And when you apply that to business or daily work, if you're a freelancer or a consultant, you need to look at your accounting software and honestly evaluate.
You will almost always find that roughly 20% of your clients are producing.
And conversely, a different 20% your headaches.
And the strategy here is ruthless elimination. You have to fire the nightmare clients who consume all your energy for minimal return. You stop selling the bottom 80% of your products that only generate marginal revenue.
You clear the deck.
Yes. So you can double down exclusively on the top 20% that actually drives meaningful results. But eliminating the junk is only half the equation. You then have to apply the second law, which is Parkinson's.
Parkinson's law is so interesting. It states that work expands to fill the time allotted. It's exactly like buying a bigger closet for your bedroom.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy.
Right. The bigger the closet you buy, the more random junk you will acquire. Time works the exact same. If you give yourself an entire week to write a standard monthly report, it will take you a week.
You'll over-research, you'll stare out the window, you'll agonize over the formatting.
Exactly. But if an emergency happens and you only have 2 hours to write that exact same report, you strip away all the fluff, you focus only on the critical data, and you get it done.
And often, the quality is just as good because you were forced into a state of deep focus. The real magic happens when you synthesize these two laws.
How so?
The frameworks advise using Pareto's law to strictly limit your tasks to only the most important 20%. Then, you use Parkinson's law to drastically shorten the time given to complete those essential tasks.
So you're creating artificial deadlines.
Exactly. High-pressure deadlines for yourself. By limiting the tasks and compressing the timeline, you force yourself into peak effectiveness and prevent any possibility of drifting back into comfortable busy work. Chapter 6. The Low Information Diet. Cultivating Selective Ignorance.
We explore how to protect your mental energy and focus by ruthlessly limiting information. Adopting a media fast and focusing on actionable information prevents cognitive overload.
Okay, so if we are going to maintain that level of intense focus, we have to address the external environment, because we live in an economy that literally weaponizes distraction.
It really does. Between breaking news alerts, endless social media, and the pressure to respond, our brains are under.
And the cognitive cost of that continuous information consumption is devastating to our productivity. A vast majority of the data we process every day is incredibly time-consuming, overwhelmingly negative by design, and completely irrelevant to our personal or professional goals.
Society tells us that it's our duty to inform citizens, though.
Right, but being well-informed today usually just means maintaining a state of chronic anxiety about global events over which we have absolutely zero direct influence.
It reminds me of how we treat our physical health. Treating your brain like a stomach, the perfect. You wouldn't eat a dozen donuts just because a coworker left them on your desk.
Definitely.
You would recognize that it's going to make you sick, but we do exactly that with our attention. We consume toxic, outrage-inducing headlines all day just because the algorithm put them in front of us.
And then we wonder why we don't have the mental energy to focus on our business goals.
Exactly. That cognitive load drains your decision-making battery. To fix this, the case studies propose a radical intervention. It's called the 1 week.
Oh, this sounds intense.
The rules are strict. For 7 consecutive days, consume 0 news. You do not visit news websites, you do not read newspapers, and you do not scroll through.
0.
You only use the web for specific, necessary work tasks. Television is limited to perhaps 1 hour of pure pleasure viewing a day. No documentary, no news.
So what do you do instead?
Instead, you listen to music, you engage in deep work, and you actually talk to the human being.
People who try this experiment usually report severe withdrawal symptoms for the first 48 hours, right? Like they feel twitchy, they feel like they're missing out on something vital.
Oh, definitely. But by day 4 or 5, they experience a massive drop in anxiety and suddenly discover they have hours of free time they didn't know existed. It teaches you the value of cultivating selective ignorance.
It forces you to distinguish between just-in-case information and just-in-time information.
Yes. The traditional education system trains us to hoard information just in case we might need.
So as adults, we read a dozen articles on the complexities of commercial real estate investing when we don't even have $1,000 saved yet.
Which is a total waste of mental. The frameworks emphasize that you should only learn things just in time to apply them. And if you need to build a landing page for your business today, you learn how to build a landing page today.
And alongside selective ignorance is a concept that is very hard for high achievers to accept, which is the art of non-finishing. It really is. We are deeply conditioned from childhood to finish what we view putting down a book halfway through as a moral failure. But if you are reading an article and it's poorly researched, or you start a project and realize the fundamentals are flawed, or you are 30 minutes into a terrible movie, you must train yourself to simply stop.
Sacrificing your most non-renewable resource, your time, just to satisfy the ego's need to say, I finished it, is a terrible Chapter 7. Interrupting interruption and the art of refusal.
We discuss taking back control of your schedule by categorizing and blocking daily interruption. Establishing strict boundaries and batching tasks reclaims hours of lost time.
Okay, so we've cut out the digital noise and the media blue. But what about the physical? What about the constant barrage of requests, meetings, and sudden urgent emails from colleagues or clients that constantly fracture our work?
We have to look at the strategies for interrupting the interruption. To regain control over your schedule, the data suggests you must relentlessly categorize the interruptions you face.
How do we break them down?
They generally fall into 3 offender categories. The first is time waste. These are interruptions that can be largely ignored with almost 0 negative consequences.
Like unimportant emails CC'd to the whole team.
Exactly. Or casual cubicle drop-ins to chat about the weekend, phone calls that lack a clear agenda, and the notorious meetings that exist solely to schedule future meeting.
Those are the words. And the second category is time constraint, right?
Right. These are tasks that genuinely need to get done to keep the business running, but they are repetitive and they constantly pull you away from high-level creative work.
Like reading necessary emails, replying to standard customer service inquiries, or filling out expense reports.
Yeah. The major problem here is the switching cost. Research shows that if you are deep in thought drafting a critical proposal and you stop for just 2 minutes to read a new email, it can take your brain up to 45 minutes to fully re-engage with the complex proposal.
Wow, so you lose hours of peak cognitive functions simply by task switching.
You really do. The specific mechanism to defeat time consumers is batching. Batching is applying the economic principle of economies of scale to your time.
So instead of leaving your inbox open all day like a leaky faucet, constantly draining your attention, you turn off all notifications?
Yes, you designate specific batched times to process communication. For example, you check and answer email only twice a day, perhaps at noon and at 4 p.m.
But to do that successfully without panicking your clients or your boss, you have to manage their expectations.
Definitely. You set up an auto-responder that says something like, "Due to high workload, I am currently checking and responding to emails at 12 p.m. and 4 p.m. If your matter is truly urgent and cannot wait until those times, please call my mobile."
You essentially train the people around you to respect your batch schedule.
And then we have the third offender, which is arguably the most insidious for managers or small business owners, and that's empowerment failures.
Yes.
This occurs when you build a system where people cannot move forward without your explicit approval. You become the bottleneck.
So your team or your freelancers constantly interrupt you asking, can I offer this customer a 10% discount? Or should I upgrade this software subscription?
Exactly. Fixing empowerment failures requires a shift in leadership. You have to establish autonomous rules. If you manage a team, you explicitly define their boundaries.
You tell them, you have the full authority to resolve any customer service dispute or make any operational purchase under $100 without asking for my permission.
Right. Use your best judgment, make the decision instantly, and we will review the outcomes together at the end of the month. You have to give intelligent people the runway to prove they are intelligent. It immediately eliminates dozens of micro-interruptions from your week.
Of course, applying these boundaries in a rigid corporate environment requires a bit of tact. If your boss is a micromanager who demands your presence at 3 useless status meetings, you can't simply declare that you're no longer attending.
No, that won't go over well. The frameworks introduce a psychological tactic borrowed from sales called the puppy dog close.
I love the psychology. If you go to a pet store and you're unsure about buying the owner will say, just take the puppy home for the weekend. If you don't want it by Monday, bring it back.
They know that once you take the puppy home, you will fall in love with it and never return it.
Exactly. And you apply this exact same logic to your boss. You propose a revocable short-term trial. You say, I am under a massive time crunch for client. As an experiment, could we try skipping the Wednesday status meeting just for this week? I will send you a detailed bulleted update instead.
And the crucial step is that you must over-deliver on that project during the time you saved. You provide undeniable proof that the new arrangement resulted in higher productivity.
Once the manager sees that the puppy is actually generating better results, it is very difficult for them to demand you return the puppy and go back to the old, inefficient way of doing things. Chapter 8. Outsourcing life. Offloading the rest and a taste of geo-arbitrage.
We explore how to free up your time by automating and delegating tasks to remote. The golden rule is to eliminate before you delegate, ensuring you only automate what really matters.
All right, so we've eliminated the useless tasks, batched the repetitive necessity, and we've empowered our team. Now we face the tasks that still need to be done but shouldn't be done by you.
Right, the things that still take up your time.
We are looking at the next layer of leverage is outsourcing. 10 years ago, outsourcing was a strategy exclusively for massive multinational, but today, the global digital economy made accessible to anyone.
The ability to delegate effectively is a superpower. The framework strongly recommend hiring a virtual assistant or a VA, regardless of whether you are an entrepreneur or just a busy.
Hiring a VA basically acts as training wheels for remote management.
It really does. It forces you to clearly document your processes, communicate with absolute precision, and value your own time. You can contract highly skilled professionals overseas to handle everything from managing your calendar and conducting market research to updating your website or booking your travel arrangement.
But before anyone rushes out to hire a team of VAs, we have to establish the absolute golden rule of this entire. It is critical. Never automate something that can be eliminated, and never delegate something that can.
That cannot be overstated. If you take a fundamentally broken, inefficient process and hand it over to an assistant, You haven't solved the problem. You've just paid money to multiply your inefficiency.
You must apply Pareto's law first. Eliminate the junk.
Exactly. If a software program can handle a task automatically, use the software. Only when a process is refined, necessary, and requires human judgment should you delegate it to a VA.
And when you do delegate globally, you unlock the macroeconomic principle of geo-arbitrage.
Oh, geo-arbitrage is fascinating.
This is the concept of leveraging currency disparities to massively your purchasing. Because the world is digitally connected, you can earn your income in a strong currency like US dollars, euros, or British pounds while paying for services in an economy with a lower cost of living like India or the Philippines.
You are essentially getting high-quality labor at a fraction of the cost it would take to hire someone local, which makes delegating even mundane tasks financially viable for a single freelancer.
This ties directly into the broader theory of leverage. The data we are analyzing identifies 3 primary forms of leverage you can use to disconnect your time from your income.
The first is labor leverage, having other human beings work for you. Using a VA falls into this category. It is powerful, but it is messy. It requires permission, leadership, and management.
Right, managing people is complex. The second type is capital leverage, using money to multiply your business, like investing in the market.
Yes, but the third type is the absolute holy grail for the modern creator or entrepreneur, and that's code and media.
Permissionless leverage.
Exactly. You don't need to interview anyone. You don't need a manager's approval. You write a piece of software, or you record a digital course, or you write a comprehensive guide. You create it once, and it can be distributed to 10,000 people while you sleep at zero marginal cost.
The most robust lifestyle businesses combine these forms of leverage. You use permissionless leverage, media, and code to create the product and capture the customer. Then you use labor leverage, your geo-arbitraged VA, to manage the customer service, the email inboxes, and the daily operations of that system.
But practically speaking, managing a remote VA requires strict protocols. You cannot say, please research competitors. That is too vague.
Right, you have to be specific.
You must provide exact parameters. Please find 20 competitors in the European market, list their pricing tiers in a spreadsheet, and deliver it by Friday at 5 p.m.
Furthermore, for security, you must dictate that they cannot subcontract your tasks to other unvetted.
Oh, definitely. And financially, never give a remote worker a debit card for business purchases. Always use a credit card, which provides a layer of fraud protection and allows you to easily reverse unauthorized charges. Chapter 9. Income Autopilot I. Finding the Muse.
We look at how to build an automated, self-sustaining muse that funds your ideal lifestyle without the focus is on niche markets and scalable products.
Okay, we are transitioning into the true engine room of this deal. We understand the theory of leverage and outsourcing. Now, how do we actually build the vehicle that generates the cash?
The frameworks refer to this vehicle as a muse, and it's vitally important to define what a muse is because it's very different from the traditional Silicon Valley model of entrepreneurship.
Right. A muse is not a tech startup aiming to disrupt an industry, secure millions in venture capital, and eventually go public.
No. A muse is a highly specific, highly controlled cash flow engine. Its sole purpose is to generate enough automated income to fund your target lifestyle, while requiring almost zero ongoing management.
The goal is to get the operational time down to less than 1 day a week.
When people decide to start a business like this, they almost always make a fatal. They lock themselves in a room, brainstorm a product they think is incredibly clever, spend 6 months and $10,000 developing it, and then they walk out into the market to try and find people to buy it.
They try to artificially manufacture demand for their creation,
which is an exhausting and highly risky strategy. The data insists on the exact opposite approach. Market first, products second.
You must identify a starving crowd before you ever think about what food to serve them.
Exactly. You look for a hyper-specific niche market that you ideally already own. Look at the specialized magazine, the obscure hobbies you have, or the specific professional challenge. Find a group of people who are actively trying to solve a specific problem, and then find or develop a product that solves it for them.
Okay, I am sold on the concept of a muse, but my mind immediately goes to the logistics. Am I dealing with a warehouse full of cheap plastic widgets imported from overseas? Dealing with customs, shipping delays, and defective parts sounds like a nightmare, not freedom.
Physical products are an option, but as you pointed out, they introduce massive supply chain friction. You can also look at licensing ideas or drop shipping, but the data overwhelmingly points to one specific category as the ideal product for a muse.
Information products.
Yes, information products like a highly specialized online video course, a detailed industry report, or an exclusive how-to guide.
If we go back to our discussion on leverage, this makes perfect sense. Information products utilize permissionless leverage. They're relatively fast to produce, but most importantly, they have zero marginal cost of replication.
It costs you exactly the same amount of money and effort to deliver a digital file to one single customer in Ohio as it does to deliver it to 10,000 customers across the globe.
Additionally, information products rely on specialized, tacit knowledge. This makes them significantly harder for cheap competitors to rip off and duplicate, unlike a generic physical gadget.
But the success of an information product relies heavily on a counterintuitive pricing strategy.
This is where beginners get the math wrong. The instinct is to price the product incredibly low, say $10 or $20, believing that a cheap price will result in maximum volume.
But the frameworks strongly advocate pricing your product in a premium sweet spot, typically between $50 and $200.
Let's break down the math of why. You have to calculate your target monthly income, the exact amount of money you need to fund your ideal lifestyle. Let's say it's $4,000 a month.
Okay, $4,000.
If your profit margin on a $20 product is $10, you have to find, convert, and process 400 individual customers every single month to hit your goal.
That's a lot of customers. But if you sell a premium information product for $150 and your profit is $100 per unit, you need to sell a month to exact same financial.
You only need to find slightly more than one buyer a day.
Exactly. It requires significantly less web traffic and lower advertising. But beyond the math, pricing acts as a psychological filter.
This is a huge insight. The people who will haggle over a $5 PDF and then demand 3 hours of your customer service time to explain how to open it are not the customers you want.
When you charge premium prices, you automatically filter out the high-maintenance, low-commitment buyer. The customer who is willing to invest $150 in a specialized training program is generally serious, professional, and vastly...
Which keeps your customer service volume low enough that a single part-time VA can easily manage it. Chapter 10. Income Autopilot. Testing the music.
We detail the importance of validating a business or spending significant time and money. Micro-testing using cheap digital ads proves whether customers will actually...
So we have identified a niche market, and we have an idea for a premium information product that solves their problem. The urge right now is to spend the next 3 months recording the videos, writing the manuals, and designing the logos.
And that is exactly what you must not do. The frameworks demand that you validate the commercial viability of the idea before you invest significant time or capital.
And to do that, we have to confront a harsh truth about human psychology. When it comes to business validation, opinions are entirely worthless.
If you ask your friends, your family, or even run a formal focus group and you say, hey, I have this idea for a course on advanced spreadsheet macros for accountants, would you buy it for $100? Almost everyone will say yes.
They say yes to be supportive, or because they like the theoretical idea of being the kind of person who learns advanced macros.
But action over opinion, the only metric of cannot ask people. You have to ask them to pull out their credit card and actually transaction. Actual purchases are the only proof that a market.
So the question is, how do you get actual purchase data for a product that hasn't been built yet?
The methodology here is a micro-testing strategy, utilizing a framework called Best, Test, Divest, or Invest. The first step is to analyze the best to see how they position their offers and what guarantee.
Then comes the test phase. You build a very basic, bare-bones website, a landing page. It doesn't need to be a massive corporate site, just 1 to 3 pages. It clearly outlines the benefits of your proposed product, states the premium price, and prominently features a Buy Now button.
And to get eyes on this page, you don't wait for organic search traffic, use targeted digital advertising, Google AdWords.
Exactly. You spend a very small, controlled budget, maybe $50 to $100. You bid on highly specific, long-tail search terms. You don't buy broad keywords like accounting. You buy exact phrases like how to automate spreadsheet macros for tax returns.
You drive a few hundred highly qualified visitors to your landing page, and you track the metrics ruthlessly. How many people click the ad, how many people read to the bottom of the page, and crucially, how many people click that Buy Now button.
Wait, Sonia, I have to jump in here because the mechanics of this sound highly questionable. If I drive a customer to a page and they click Buy Now and enter their billing information for a product that literally does not exist yet, isn't that just straight up fraud? How is that an ethical business practice?
It is a vital question, and the distinction lies in the back-end mechanics. You are not capturing their money and running away. When the user clicks the final Submit Order button, the system does not charge their credit card. Instead, They are immediately redirected to a page that politely explains the product is currently out of stock or in backorders and their card has not been billed. You might offer them a discount code for when the product officially launches to thank them.
Okay, so they experience a minor inconvenience of a few seconds.
Correct. That brief moment of friction for a few dozen website visits is weighed against the massive risk of this microtest prevents the founder from wasting thousands of dollars and perhaps years of their life building a product that literally nobody on earth.
It is an ethical, controlled experiment to prove real-world demand.
If the conversion rates are terrible, you divest. You scrap the idea having only lost $50 in a weekend of work. But if the conversion rates indicate a highly profitable campaign, you invest. You now have the mathematical confidence to actually build the product as fast as possible.
Chapter 11, Income Autopilot 3, MBA Management by Absence. We discuss how to remove yourself from the daily operations of a successful business. By limiting customer options and establishing self-correcting systems, you can achieve true management by absence.
Let's assume the microtest was a massive success. You invested the time, you built the information product, you turned the advertising campaigns back on, and people are buying it. The money is flowing into your account.
Now you face a brand new, highly ironic danger. You might accidentally build yourself a new, highly stressful 60-hour-a-week job instead of a muse.
This is where the concept of MBA comes in. But in this context, it doesn't stand for Master of Business. It stands for Management by Absence.
The ultimate goal of the muse is to remove yourself entirely from the daily operations. To do that, you must construct a self-correcting architecture.
What does a self-correcting architecture actually look like in practice? If I'm the founder, how do I step away without the whole thing collapsing?
It requires connecting your outsourced layers together so they bypass you. You contract specialized freelancers, or agencies say, a dedicated customer service VA in the Philippines, a technical support freelancer in Eastern Europe, and a payment processing gateway.
Okay, so multiple moving parts.
The architecture requires you to introduce these entities to each other and grant them the authority to communicate directly. If a customer has a technical glitch, the customer service VA doesn't email you to ask what to do. They email the tech support freelancer directly.
You provide them with an exhaustive FAQ document and the empowerment rules we discussed earlier. The system resolves its own errors.
But to make that system robust, you have to drastically reduce the complexity of your business. The frameworks highlight a concept called the art of undecision.
It addresses the paradox of choice, right?
Yes. As consumers, we are taught that having infinite choices is great. As business owners, we often think offering 20 different variations of a product with 5 different payment plans is providing excellent customer service.
The psychological data shows the exact opposite. Offering too many options paralyzes the consumer, leading to cart abandonment.
And operationally, it creates a labyrinth of logistical variables that your remote team will inevitably mess up, forcing you to step in and fix it. By embracing the art of undecision, you offer drastically fewer choices.
You offer one standard version of your product and perhaps one premium version. No complex payment plans, no highly customized add-ons.
Limiting options translates to less customer indecision, higher conversion rates, and a streamlined back-end operation that rarely breaks.
And speaking of minimizing friction, we have to apply Pareto's 80-20 rule to the customer themselves. This is a very bitter pill for people pleasers to swallow, but you absolutely have to fire bad customers.
The analytics consistently demonstrate that the subset of customers who spend the least amount of money consume the vast majority of your customer service bandwidth.
They complain the most, they demand the most hand-holding, and they drain the system.
The people who pay premium prices rarely complain. You must engineer a system that filters out the headaches. One incredibly counterintuitive way to do this is by implementing a lose-win guarantee.
Most businesses have standard, boring 30-day return policies hidden in fine print.
The frameworks suggest offering an outrageously bold guarantee, for example, a 60-day, no questions asked, 110% money-back guarantee.
Wait, giving them back more money than they paid, won't people just scam you?
A tiny fraction of people might. But look at the broader mechanics. An outrageous guarantee completely removes all purchasing friction and anxiety for the vast majority of good, honest customers, which dramatically boosts your overall sales.
And when someone does request a refund, your automated system just processes it instantly without any argument or need you to review the case.
You might lose a small margin on that specific transaction, but you win massively on the operational smoothness and the aggregate increase in total revenue.
And while you are orchestrating all this automation from behind the scenes, you want the front-facing business to project total professional. You can construct an operation that looks like a Fortune 500 company, even if it is literally just you and a virtual.
It's about utilizing modern tech infrastructure.
Exactly.
You don't use your personal cell phone number or a home address.
You set up a cloud-based interactive voice response system, an IVR. So when a customer calls the toll-free number on your website, they hear a professional. Press 1 for sales, press 2 for customer.
The brilliant part is that the technology can route both of those extensions directly to your VA's digital voicemail inbox halfway across the world. You set up role-based email addresses like billing@yourdomain.com and support@yourdomain.com rather than routing everything through your personal inbox.
It builds immediate trust with the consumer, and it completely insulates your personal time for operation. Chapter 2, Disappearing Act. How to escape the office.
We offer a step-by-step blueprint for traditional employees to transition into remote work. The strategy relies on proving off-site productivity and presenting location independence as a business benefit.
Now, everything we have discussed in the last few sections, finding a muse, micro-testing, building self-correcting architecture, is heavily geared the entrepreneurial path.
But what if you are listening to this and you actually like your career? You are a traditional corporate employee, you enjoy your field, you have a great salary, but you desperately want that location independent.
You want to escape the physical cubicle without quitting your job.
The research outlines a very specific, phased blueprint for exactly this scenario, often referred to as the hourglass approach. It is a calculated strategy designed to logically guide your management to the conclusion that letting you work remotely is in the company's absolute best interest.
Because the biggest mistake employees make is simply walking into the boss's office and demanding to work from home.
Because the company does not care about your personal desires. Step 1 of the hourglass approach is preparation. You have to increase the company's investment in you.
You must make yourself indispensable. You volunteer for specialized training. You take the lead on a critical, high-visibility project.
You engineer a situation where the financial and operational cost of replacing you is significantly higher than the minor discomfort of letting you work off-site. Once you have established that leverage, you move to step 2, which is the setup.
You need to gather empirical evidence of your off-site productivity before you officially request remote work.
You call in sick, or you cite a minor household emergency like waiting for a plumber, and you tell your boss you will work from home for the day to ensure things stay on track.
And on that specific day, you do not do laundry, you do not watch television, you work with terrifying intensity, you double your normal office output.
You send emails early in the morning and late in the afternoon to establish your presence. Most importantly, you create a documented paper trail of exactly what you accomplished without the distractions of the office.
Because step 3 is building the business. As you noted, you cannot frame remote work as a personal perk. You do not tell your boss you want to work from home so you can walk your dog or avoid traffic.
You schedule a meeting and present a quantifiable bulleted list. You say, look at the data from Tuesday. Because I wasn't interrupted by office drop-ins or unnecessary meetings, I completed these 3 major reports in half the time. My lack of physical presence directly benefited the company's output.
Which leads directly into step 4, where we deploy our favorite psychological. Again,
you do not ask for a permanent, full-time remote arrangement. That is too much risk for a manager to absorb all at once. You propose a highly restricted, revocable trial.
You say, given the data on how much more productive I am off-site, I'd like to propose a 2-week experiment where I work from home just 1 day a week, Thursday. If my metrics don't remain higher than my office days, we immediately cancel the experiment and go back to normal.
It is an incredibly difficult proposition for a rational manager to refuse. You are offering them a risk-free trial that promises higher corporate productivity. And once you secure that 1 day a week, you treat it like a sprint. You ensure your metrics are undeniably superior.
Then, in step 5, you hold a review meeting. You present the undeniable data of your increased performance over the trial period. You then systematically expand the trial. You ask to increase it to 2 days a week, then 4 days, until you eventually transition your role entirely.
You systematically train your employer to value your performance-based results over your physical, presence-based attendance. Chapter 14. Mini-retirement. Embracing the mobile lifestyle.
We challenge the idea of waiting until old age to retire, proposing instead to take mini-retirements throughout your active. We cover affordable travel, minimalism, and filling the void left.
So, whether you have built a fully automated muse or you have successfully negotiated a fully remote employment contract, you have finally acquired the 2 ultimate currencies of the new rich time and mobility. But that presents a massive existential question. What do you actually do with them?
This is where the frameworks fundamentally dismantle the entire structure of the deferred life plan we discussed at the very beginning. Instead of stockpiling all your resources and waiting 30 or 40 years to take one massive final retirement at the physical life, you redistribute that retirement throughout your active.
The concept is called taking mini retirement, and we have to clarify what a mini retirement actually is because it is not a vacation.
A standard 2-week binge vacation is what people do when they are exhausted. You fly to a resort, you try to aggressively relax, you frantically take photos of landmarks you were there, and you fly back to the office. A binge vacation is merely a brief escape from a high-stress life.
A mini retirement is an entirely different operational. It involves relocating to a single place for an extended period, anywhere from 1 to 6 months.
It is not about rushing through an itinerary. It is about settling into a new rhythm. It allows you to deeply experience it, to live a normal daily life in an extraordinary location, and to truly unplug and reflect on your broader trajectory.
The immediate pushback I hear from is the financial. I can't afford to move my family to Argentina or Thailand.
But this is where the math of lifestyle design, specifically geo-arbitrage, completely flips the. It is geo-arbitrage applied to your personal. When you prepare for a mini retirement, you are forced to engage.
You eliminate 80% of your physical clutter, you stop buying used consumer goods, and you perhaps rent out your primary residence.
Then you take your strong currency, your automated income, your muse or your remote salary, and you relocate to where the macroeconomic cost of a fraction.
The shock for most people is realizing that traveling slowly and relocating can actually be significantly cheaper than staying home.
If you lease your expensive apartment in London and rent a beautiful, spacious villa in Southeast or South America, your overall monthly operating expenses drop dramatically, while your actual quality of life and purchasing power skyrocket. You aren't paying tourist hotel rates, you are paying local residential.
But while the financial math is highly favorable, there is a massive psychological hurdle that trips up a lot of high achievers. When you successfully automate your income, escape the office, and suddenly subtract 40 to 60 hours of mandatory structured work from your week, you create a massive void in your.
This is the hidden danger of lifestyle design. We are culturally conditioned to derive our identity and our self-worth from our business, our job.
If you do not fill that new void intentionally, the psychological data shows that you will likely fall into a profound existential depression, or you will begin inventing fake, stressful tasks just to feel important and busy again. Humans are not biologically designed for perpetual idle leisure. We require purpose.
So how do we properly fill that void? The research points to 2 foundational pillars for a successful mini retirement. The first is continuing.
You aren't just sitting by a pool drinking margaritas for 3 months.
You dedicate your newly freed cognitive bandwidth to master. You relocate to Buenos Aires and spend 3 months doing intensive Spanish. You learn a martial art, you learn a complex programming to sail. Continual learning provides daily structure and measurable satisfaction.
The second pillar is service, doing something that improves life beyond your own immediate gratification. When you have finally freed yourself from the daily scramble for corporate survival and status, you suddenly have the emotional and temporal bandwidth to actually contribute to the world.
That might be mentoring young entrepreneurs remotely, engaging in local environmental work, or helping build infrastructure. Service provides the deep, lasting fulfillment that absolute freedom and passive can never buy.
It brings the entire methodology full circle. You aren't optimizing your work just to escape responsibility. You are systematically designing your life to free up the resources required to actually become a more developed, engaged, and contributing human.
Let's bring this all together and recap the massive amount of ground we've covered. We started with a fundamental mindset. We challenged the deferred life plan and aimed for the new rich lifestyle, driven by the freedom multiplier.
We talked about setting up a systematic wealth infrastructure by understanding relative versus absolute and aggressively hunting for eustress while ruthlessly eliminating stress.
We then moved into applied Pareto's entirely on high impact and Parkinson compressed the critical or cognitive batching.
From there, to the actual decoupling, we explained and automated, utilizing less leverage products, and rigorously micro-testing market demand boosting capital. We covered the self-correcting architecture of by app, and for the traditional, we outlined the hourglass approach to systematically build a business case for. Finally, we arrived at the liberating physical location to embrace retirement, filling the void. It is a comprehensive and radical, but it is essential to contextual, absolute, or traveling.
Some people truly thrive in a highly structured, collaborative office environment. Many people have deep, localized family responsibilities or community ties that make international geo-arbitrage entirely impractical. Listeners must critically evaluate these concepts based on their own specific goals, career constraints, and currency.
You don't have to adopt the entire extreme framework. You can cherry-pick the concepts like batching your emails, setting up autonomous rules for your team, or taking a simple one-week media fast that will immediately reduce your stress and improve your current situation.
That is incredibly important context. Success looks different for every individual, and you have to define your own version of the ideal.
To leave you with something to really mull over, I want to pose a final provocative thought experiment based on the framework discussed. I want you to imagine a scenario. Imagine you went to your doctor tomorrow, and they told you that due to a rare stress-induced heart condition, you could only work a maximum of 2 hours a week not 2 hours a day, 2 hours a week.
If you had a heart attack and were physically limited to working 2 hours a week, what are the absolute vital few tasks you would actually... What is the 1% of your current professional and personal life that genuinely...
That question completely strips away all the noise, the fake busyness, and the ego, and it forces you to confront your absolute true priorities.
It really does. Thank you all for joining us on this deep dive into the source material on lifestyle design, automation, and reclaiming your time. We hope these frameworks spark some incredible changes in how you view your work, your income, and your life.
From both of us here, thanks for joining ZM Audiobook today. Have a fantastic and highly effective